अगर आप होटल मैनेजमेंट कर रहे हैं या होटल मैनेजमेंट करने की सोच रहे हैं तो ये पॉडकास्ट आपके लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है। मैं एक फिगर आपको देना चाहता हूं। 2019 में लगभग 40,000 फॉर्म भरे गए थे, 2020 में लगभग 35,000 फॉर्म भरे गए थे और 2024 में लगभग 12,000 फॉर्म भरे गए थे और 2025 में ये फॉर्म 12,000 के आसपास ही थे। ऐसा क्या हुआ इस इंडस्ट्री को जो ये फिगर्स कम डाउन होते चले जा रहे हैं? हम आज के इस पॉडकास्ट में होटल मैनेजमेंट की कंप्लीट फैक्ट चेकिंग करेंगे कि क्या नंबर्स हैं, क्या सैलरी पैकेज आता है, क्या स्किल्स रिक्वायरमेंट है, हर एस्पेक्ट इसका हम चेक करेंगे। इस डिस्कशन के लिए आज हमारे साथ इस पॉडकास्ट में संदीप मुंजाल सर अवेलेबल हैं, जो वेदात्या इंस्टीट्यूट को लीड करते हैं, उसके डायरेक्टर हैं। सर ने डेकेड्स दिया हुआ है इस इंडस्ट्री को अक्रॉस यूएस, यूके और पिछले लगभग 2 डेकेड से तो सर एजुकेशन इंडस्ट्री में वर्क कर रहे हैं। तो सर एक बार प्लीज अपना इंट्रोडक्शन दे दें हमारे व्यूअर्स को।
नमस्कार, संदीप मुंजाल इज माय नेम एज आई वाज इंट्रोड्यूस्ड। सो मैंने इंडस्ट्री 30 साल पहले ज्वाइन करी। आई स्टार्टेड ऑफ एन फर्स्ट बैच पास आउट एंड अ गोल्ड मेडलिस्ट फ्रॉम IIM औरंगाबाद एंड देन आई वर्कड विद ताज फॉर अबाउट 7 years। उसके बाद यूएस में एरामार्क कॉर्पोरेशन के साथ काम किया मैंने रिटेल के अंदर, सम वर्क इन कंसल्टिंग एंड देन केम बैक टू इंडिया and since coming back to India I went into the education side of the industry and been associated with Vedatya for almost 20 years now. So that's the journey that I've had, and I have qualifications. I'm an avid researcher. There are books that I have published, so I have a lot of gratitude for what I've got from the industry, and I think everything that I am and everything that I was able to achieve, I give credit to this industry, and that's the reason I'm always happy to connect and respond to issues that are looking at us, and of course the industry itself. So happy to connect with you.
Thank you so much, sir. 2019 से 2025 के बीच में जो नंबर्स हैं वो 20% ही रह गया। ये जो डिस्कनेक्ट आया, ये क्यों आया?
So the disconnect that we are seeing now, ये इतना सडन जितना दिख रहा है, ये इतना सडन है नहीं एक्चुअली। इनफैक्ट मैं अक्सर कन्वर्सेशंस में whenever I'm meeting people from the industry, leadership in the industry, even in education, so I'm surprised it took this long for this to happen. उसके 2-3 कारण हैं। Even when I stepped into the industry, there were a couple of things that as an intern, as a management trainee, as an entry-level manager, that bothered us. And first aspect was, of course, the salaries and the remuneration that you get. So there was always that feeling that the industry doesn't pay that much. The second aspect was the effect on the quality of life. And I come from a generation where, and I think India did not have what it has in terms of opportunities today. So organized retail nahi tha, while brands like Taj, ITC and Oberoi's were there, the international chains had yet not arrived in India. In fact, जो hotel industry का भी structure है, वो जो segmentation अब है, that wasn't there. So a lot events business wasn't where it is today, while there was some catering business. So the opportunities scaled up. The industry, I think, especially hotel companies, both domestic and even the international players that came through, they did not realize that with more opportunities opening up for young people, they will need to make a case for them to choose the industry. Right? And that thought process, earlier it was, students from the science background were largely choosing hospitality, and when I entered the industry, the narrative was that if you're interested in science, you'd either go the engineering way or you will go the medicine way, and if not, then the hotel way, right? And typically, if you were able to get the statistics, you'll realize typically about 70% intake into the 30,000-40,000 applicant base used to be science. That also kept changing. A lot of commerce graduates started looking at hospitality. In fact, if we look at our last 10 years intake, 65 to 70% of our students, enrolled students, they come from commerce background. And then I think another 20% science, and the third would be the liberal arts. So the salary structure was always an issue. and continues to be so actually. Even though we'll speak about how that might be changing a little or heading in the right direction, but a lot more has to be done. And then the work-life balance aspect. What the industry also did not do well on was to work on the narrative, right? If there is a narrative which is getting staged that is going to push away a segment of people or a large number of youngsters away, you have to make your case, right? And I'll make that case. I started off by saying that I owe the industry everything. So as an intern, yes, it was frustrating because you weren't getting paid, but I realized कि मुझे सिखा भी रहे हैं. So while I'm not getting paid, they're making me, and that is so the monetary aspect of what I'm getting is not what I have to look at. It is what they are giving me in terms of my capacity to do what I will do later on. The entry level start, again I had that same feeling, but then I also parallelly realized that if you have a staying power, 3 to 5 years, if you're able to give initially, you will grow into roles where the money becomes much better, and it continues to go that way. The industry did not do a good job in terms of answering back to that narrative कि भाई पैसे भी नहीं है और लाइफ भी नहीं है, and also the fact कि अब options बहुत हैं बच्चों के पास. It's a great thing that our sons and daughters have a range of options to choose from, and not just the 5, 6 or 7 that would be there 30 years back. So the industry needs to start making a case for itself, right? And I was speaking to you before informally, right? When with what AI is doing to career pathways and job roles and areas where certainly opportunities are changing, service industry से ज़्यादा safe area कोई होगा नहीं career pathway में. In terms of where a human being is,
Human intervention is always there.
always going to be there और replaceable नहीं है. And the irony is that the demand side, and if you look at statistics from, I think there's a report that comes out of Hotel I-Wait, which looks at projects, new openings, number of keys that have been, that have grown, segments wise breakup. And I'm just talking India. Even if you look at larger basket, massive growth, massive demand. Irony ये है कि आपने जो numbers share करे, that the input side is shrinking while the demand side is through the roof. कोविड के समय भी एक नैरेटिव आया कि भाई इंडस्ट्री को साल भर लगा. In fact, it used that period of time to consolidate, and literally जो भी infrastructure enhancements हैं वो किए लोगों ने, and the demand side is growing through the roof. So I think so it's a little, so this complexity is there where industry will have to do its bit narrative wise. They'll have to do a little bit fairly quickly in terms of validating to a young person today that join the industry, I'm going to pay you decent salaries. It will be comparable to some of the other sectors that you're choosing. Make it comparable. So person does the math, he's able to say, okay, this looks like a good idea, and also tell them that there is a career pathway, and it is more insulated than I think a whole bunch of careers today. So I think with that narrative we can start attracting that pool, but I think that is where the industry missed the bus, and the result is in front of everyone, and hopefully I think we will move beyond conversations, right? And a lot of conferences and industry meets last 10 years, maybe even more, we have been hearing the same stuff, right? So it is almost like I keep saying talk is cheap, right? I can have a conversation, sound like I have all the answers or I have great recommendations, but somebody will have to go ahead and implement them. तो वो intent to implement अगर होगा, तो I think slowly, and it's not going to change dramatically overnight. So the damage has happened through decades, so it has to be fixed through a decade also. So if we start today, we'll start building a narrative slowly. So over a period of 5 years and 10 years, we'll soon start seeing this number go back to maybe a lakh. If I remember, it used to be a more than lakh applicants across programs when I entered the industry. Hopefully we'll get back there.
Okay, so during this dramatic dip in the numbers, how Vedatya is different from other colleges of hotel management?
So in terms of the overall applicant pool shrinking to where it has shrunk, I think folks like us, we were always niche players to start with. So even when we were looking at attracting applicants and the nature and the quality of our program, our sense was smaller batch sizes as compared to some of the IHMs. They take 300, 350 students. So we were never about that. So for us, a batch of 60 was what we wanted. So from that perspective, even though the dilution in numbers is there, I think it's not that dramatic for us. What, of course, as I mentioned earlier, what I have seen is a difference in who is showing interest in hospitality or a hotel management career. So that segment has shifted. So some of the youngsters with fantastic communication skills, right, and that we would see 15 years back. So we are seeing a different segment today, and because of that, we have had to have curriculum, and content enhancements and support structures so that we are able to look at who is looking at entering this industry, and we are able to make sure that our output is still, if not exactly the same, similar to the quality that we have been offering for the last almost 25 years that the institute's been around. So there's a shift in numbers, but I think folks where they were doing very large numbers, I think it's very dramatic for them. But for us, even though the impact is there, it is more about aligning to the nature of the applicant rather than that. But the rejection rates are not where they used to be. I'd mentioned that to them. In terms of a pool that's looking at you and then you are saying, okay, our benchmark has had to adjust to the ground reality. So we have done that, but we made sure that where we see a gap in terms of the applicant pool, we're able to address that through the program and its delivery.
Okay. So how does Vedatya prepare actually for domestic and international markets?
So our orientation of our program, and I think you would be familiar, for initial years we offered Oxford Brookes University's program in India. Right? And one of the things that I did not like too much about their program or about the international programs was that their operational balance was not where I would want it to. So over the last 15 years, we've been able to address that. So when I look at our program, it has everything that a young associate will need to work through the first 3 years where the focus is all about skills, but has everything that he or she needs to then continue to grow all the way into 5, 10, 15 years. A few years back, we did a analysis of, so 25 years means we have about, some of our graduates are in that 20 plus years of career. So वो फिर हमने analysis किया. So, and what I was very happy to see was, and I'm just trying to recollect the stats, but I think about 66% of them were still in the industry, which surprised me. So in fact, जो मेरा अपना batch है औरंगाबाद का, I don't think ये number होगा. I think it would possibly be about 25-30%, maybe even less than 25% now, as we enter in, as we are all mostly in our 50s. So when you look at that percentage, that about 66-68% of your students remained in the industry, that was a thumbs up. Then they had grown. And the argument to even look at stats like that was to see that if a program is balanced the way I mentioned, tab ye hona chahiye. That you're not just working through the initial years and then stagnating, then you should be able to grow. So we were able to see that. So that was interesting. So for us, it has been that journey. Even with shift in the applicant pool, I think we should have been able to successfully work on curriculum, changes in curriculum and delivery approach to make sure that the product that goes out is able to have a journey which sees growth and which sees their ability to not just work in India, international. So international internships were always embedded with us. So earlier, in fact, jab UK ke laws, I think they were more favorable to internships. The entire batch used to go to UK en masse, and it used to be a year's internship. And thereafter also, there was a phase when Germany was active. There was a phase when Middle East has always been there. Recently, you'll be very surprised, and I think the US J1 visas, and I think it needs you to prepare them for an interview where they have to really come across quite well. And I think 70-80% of our interns went to US over the last 2-3 years. So US has been the big through the J1 visas. Middle East continues to be active. a lot of folks have actually settled in Middle East, UK, New Zealand. In fact, there's a PR piece that somebody was doing, and they were talking about job market hospitality wise in New Zealand and Australia. It seems to be also there seems to be a lot of demand. So I was speaking to some of our alumni who are settled there. So and it just beats my mind for an industry जहाँ हिंदुस्तान में भी डिमांड थ्रू द रूफ है, globally भी through the roof है, and the industry is still not able to stitch a narrative that don't look anywhere else. I mean, if you got half an interest and you're interactive and you think service industry is for you, so the entire globe is your workplace, right? And in an environment like that, when you hear numbers like that, so, you wonder, right? Why would this be the case? And the flip side is, I can name career pathways जहाँ job opportunities हैं ही नहीं, और applicant pool हजारों में नहीं, आपको लाखों में मिल जाएगा. So and then somebody wonders, wow, where is the equation not getting balanced, right? Where is the narrative not being stitched right? Where parents, students, they realize that, and I think it will be inappropriate for me to identify pathways, but with little research you can identify programs, degrees where at the end there is absolutely darkness in terms of what you're going to do with that. और वो statistics available भी हैं, and it's going to become even more sharply so evident with what AI is doing, and yet you are having 30,000, 40, 50,000 applicants, and here is the place where I'm telling you that and when somebody asks me placements के बारे में बताइए सर, तो placements is a non-issue, right? Where the person needs 100, the institutions that cannot offer 10% of that. That means there's a huge gap, which means the size of the job offers is massive. मुझसे तो आप ये पूछिए कि quality of placement की बात करिए, then I'll tell them 90% of our applicants are going to be the supervisor or management trainees, right? So that's where a place like us is going to make it stand versus to say कि job मिली या नहीं मिली. So of course everyone will have a job in an industry where the demand side is so big, which means all you want to do is, in fact I tell youngsters, if you stay 9-10 years, आप एक middle segment hotel के अंदर general manager तक बन सकते हो, right? You give it 10-12 years. In the days when I started the industry, one promotion would take 7-8 years. That was the very reason I decided to head out. If today I was a graduate here, I know there is enough play even if I don't go outside. That said, I know everyone wants to go because there is better money, and maybe you want to spend some time internationally, but there is no limitation to your growth in India. Yes, the entry level, we need to do better, we need to pay more. But other than that, I think it adds up fairly quickly.
So this service industry has taken a complete shift in the 3 decades when you started. What are the basic 3 skills in today's hospitality interns should have? So let me give you an answer beyond the obvious that you would have heard a million times. I think what is really needed is work ethic. And I don't think there might be any industry where poor work ethic works out. Okay. But I think in our industry, if your work ethic is strong, right, and if you're willing to learn, right, if you have just those 2 skills, these are very everything else falls in place. Right? Of course, इसके ऊपर layer intent का चाहिए कि the sector looks something like you want to work, right? Because when I look at individuals who come and I see a applicant who some of our admissions team members or some of our faculty mentioned, that ये तो borderline है. There's nothing great about the guy, right? When that guy is getting out just because he had a strong work ethic, attitudinal element सही था उसका, and was willing to work hard, he actually in 5 years out, 10 years out, he's a star, right? So that understanding that somebody may have had 15 years or 20 years back, that look, the guy is so smart, right, and speaks so well, यही तो चाहिए इंडस्ट्री के लिए. वो इंडस्ट्री के लिए चाहिए,
लेकिन वो additional है to these two things that I mentioned, right? If that guy has a poor work ethic, there is no play.
Absolutely.
Right? If that guy has no discipline, if you don't want to work hard, there is no play. Right? So willingness to learn agar hai, you will learn. You may be a little slower than the other guy, and the industry will receive you very well, right? And the industry will make sure that you get growth, right? And the individuals who are general managers and they have started from the scratch, right? So that thought process that you look at, so even I have changed that lens. So I'm looking more for, do you really want to make it in the industry, right? And here is a guy who thinks just because he speaks well, he is special. Not really, not really, right? So I think the key elements to look for is that intent that our service industry will demand that. It will demand sacrifice. Right? Are you willing to give that sacrifice? It will extract that cost from you in terms of not being there home in the evenings. Are you willing to give that cost? So do you have that hunger to offer that? If you have that, आप value भी करोगे उसको. The other guy, trust me, वो साल भर के बाद वैसे ही छोड़ के चला जाएगा. Because could be that the aspirations are different, or could be that the mindset was quite different. So that's the guy who's there and who's going to be still in the industry 10 years, right? So, and anyone who has a right kind of work ethic. The moment somebody tells me, or a parent tells me, na isko, and a lot of parents, I'm glad you asked this question. A lot of times parents will tell कि ये सर ये सर्व करना पड़ता है, टॉयलेट भी साफ करना पड़ता है, और ये तो my first sense is that if you think your work ethic does not connect with dignity of labor, right? I have done all of this with a sense of pride, right? The glasses won't get cleaned on their own, somebody cleans that. The tables will not get set up, the room will not look sharp and nice, somebody does that. If you think that your son or daughter will, like this, sit in a manager's office and guide, do you think there is any business जहाँ बिना nuts and bolts को समझे और उस काम की respect के आप grow कर जाओगे, तो you are in the wrong line.
Absolutely.
You absolutely have to have all of that. So in my judgment, all of those are aspects that are really important, and those are the guys who are going to make it in the industry. Somebody who feels that internship में तो कर लूँगा, लेकिन उसके बाद, so basically what you're doing is you're looking down at the very work which builds the business. तो वहाँ तो discord है. So the real skills are those. बाकी सब acquire हो जाए.
So how do you blend practical learning with theoretical knowledge at Vedatya?
So they both go hand in hand, right? And I think we even define practical to a next level, where you want to make sure that, for example, if you were to have a lunch service, right, and you realize that students are coming, taking an order, food is getting served right, so you have to figure out that, okay, those are the basic skills that got done. Where do you finally want to take them 3 years out, right? So the basic skills across the 4 operational pillars of the industry or of any service industry will get attended to. You will acquire those. Parallelly, you will make sure that you know. So if you're serving wine, you know about wines, right? So if you're serving beer, you've actually seen the process of. So we have a course where in a lab setting, control setting, you actually make wines. You will actually make beer right up till it's bottling. So what has happened is that rather than us asking them to memorize stuff, right, there's no premium on that anyways. My days, they would give us that book, Laru's F&B key, and they'll make you memorize regions of wines. Where is the premium on that? Knowledge, information में premium नहीं है. They can Google that information and throw that back at me. So the premium is to understand, okay, how does it really get made, right? While they are doing that, without the need to memorize, they actually understand. In fact, if I'm honest, I did not understand winemaking when I was at college. I understood it here, right? So what happens? Yeast कम डल जाएगा तो क्या होगा, ज़्यादा होगा तो क्या होगा, fermentation कैसे होगी? How does a wine turn out great? How do you know it has really been? So we have had years when it's been atrocious, but fantastic learning nonetheless. तो सारी गलतियां करके तुम्हारा टेम्परेचर गलत था, तुमने ये गलत डाल दिया, and you realize okay, all of that matters. So now what has happened is that entire cohort really understood कि ये what makes wine so special, right? Why it is like religion in a place like Italy or France and a lot of other areas, because the people put their heart and soul in even getting it to that uh, level where somebody takes a whiff of that wine or takes a sip and says, this is fantastic. And so right from tasting, a lot of places, I don't actually know of any place that would go that far. So the point I was making is, you want to learn something, learn it really. Right? So we have a food truck, आपने देखा होगा, so students run that. The rationale behind running that is, first year में you got all the basic skills of F&B के, production के. अब आप इसको apply कैसे करोगे? Point of sale. Eventually you want to run a business, right? So this food truck is like a point of sale. Run it. Then what you realize is, you will have to make a menu digitally or otherwise, right? Price it, handle the customer service, handle the operational issues of the food truck, handle the maintenance issues of the food truck, right? Market your theme or market your special lunch or dinner or whatever you are doing. Then you look at your numbers. पैसे बने या गवाए तुमने, right? So go all the way through. So we use a tool analytics के लिए, so point of sale Rista. We also then connect it with another analytical tool, so that data analytics automatically हो जाती है. So you look at those reports. Most of the managers in the industry, they look at the big numbers, but analytically, if they're honest about it, not all of them are very strong in terms of looking at the financial numbers or able to see that. We make an effort that they're able to understand the business 360 degree. वो तभी हो सकता है जब आप ये भी रियलाइज करें that the operational bit is important, पर वो साइलो में नहीं बैठा है. Entertainment, then the final year वो events manage करते हैं. So when you're managing an event, so you have to give us a 40% margin. They have to pass that course. They have to give a 40% bottom line, which means now if you are at least, when you do it as a group, there will be somebody who will be the leader, then departmental heads, right? उनसे जूनियर बैच वाले उनके लिए सुपरवाइजर और स्टाफ बनेंगे. So that पूरी चेन है. So if you visualize, first year, strengthen the operational skills, do the internship. It also gives you some sense of okay, what I want to really do आगे के लिए. Same second year के अंदर run the point of sale, which is a small, so you're running a small ship there. Make a lot of mistakes, right? Food good, food bad, food burnt, whatever is happening. Business making money, not making. Then eventually the events. So the thought process is, by the time you're getting out, so you have at least gone through a decent curve where you understand that tomorrow, and a lot of youngsters today want to start something of their own. At mid-20s, we have so many alumni who are fantastic. In fact, this chain of restaurants called Burgrill, so these are alumni. Two of them, I don't think they were batchmates. एक साल का शायद फर्क था. So they started that company. It's I think 90, and there are many other success stories like that. Senses, and I asked him actually last year alumni meet me. We did our 25th year celebration, and I asked him. He wasn't. So if I'd looked at him, I've taught him, so I've had memories. I did not visualize that you were absorbing so much. So it's interesting to see how your delivery approach is touching students in different ways, right? Not all of that is evident in your assessments all the time, right? So the assessments will go thus far and no further. So there's so much more the guy was picking up, which he eventually uses to set up something of his own, and has become the chain that it has become. Of course, journey से भी हुआ होगा, but I was curious to say that, and he said that he had an interaction with a faculty member and said, I want to start something, मैं क्या करूं? तो उन्होंने कहा, तुझे बर्गर बहुत अच्छा लगता है. कहते हैं हाँ, burgers? You're passionate about burgers, right? And start a burger chain. So that's where the idea came from. But I asked him, so he pinpointed that the program was setting all those pieces up. कुछ उस समय evident होता है, कुछ नहीं होता. And the reason this input is important for me, and I keep reaching out and finding out, is because we need to be very sure that at all points, looking at the environment that we are in, is the program relevant? Is the program relevant? Is the program relevant? तो अगर कुछ उसमें irrelevant हो रहा है तो उस irrelevant को हटा के relevant ले आएं, right? Because otherwise what happens is lots of programs वो चल रहा है वो obsolete हो रहा है, उसमें elements की requirement नहीं है. तो marketing versus digital marketing there is a stress. Right? What do you want to do now? Do you want to talk about? Absolutely, because large part of the marketing aspect, especially for smaller organizations, is going to be digital. तो आप उसको factor in तो करोगे, and there are so many of those elements that have crept in. So I think the program has to keep on evolving all the time for it to remain relevant. In fact, we do an exercise every 2 years, so where we revalidate that. At least industry relevance clear होना चाहिए.
ओके सर, क्या कोई ग्लोबल इमर्शन प्रोग्राम भी है वेदांत्या का?
Global immersion in the sense?
As in international tie-ups with some other universities.
We have for our hospitality program with Manchester Metropolitan. In fact, we had students from Manchester come just before COVID. So we have exchanged their courses where we have worked jointly with them. So there's a module which runs here and in UK parallelly. So there is collaboration of that kind. There is research that we do. In fact, we have a journal which is almost as old as ours. It's listed on ABDC. So published research and student mobility, of course, is there. So we have had our student, go and do a year with them. In fact, one went just last year. So we have that opportunity. Similar for the culinary program, and of course the BBA program also that we offer. But these opportunities are there for the students. Swiss Education Group is where the collaboration is as far as the culinary program goes, and with Manchester Metropolitan for the hospitality program.
Okay. So before this formal conversation, we had some informal conversation. We were discussing about artificial intelligence and machine learning that has become a household name, and generative AI has taken up a lot of jobs. So how do you see the integration of artificial intelligence, machine learning, or all these other generative artificial intelligence in this service industry?
So in fact, not just the industry, it is even affecting how we are delivering programs. So we used anti-plagiarism software, Turnitin use karte the. So the content. So if you ask a young person today to write an essay, वो कैसे लिख के आने वाला है वो मुझे पता है. तो you have to recognize. So there's two elements here. I think you have to recognize that the technology is there, and so you cannot deny its access to anyone. So you have to recognize that even your students are going to use those tools. So you have to embrace and welcome that. The only thing that you need to do, which we are doing, in fact, there is some work that I am doing which will drive our policy changes. थोड़े से ironical होंगे क्योंकि 50-60 साल के अंदर हमने सब चीज डिजिटल कराई. Now we are going to walk back to handwritten. In fact, it has already happened in a lot of US universities already. So the reason you are going to need to ask a young person to write with a pen again is because you want to be sure that what he is writing is a representation of what he understands. Because of you cannot rely on what he is showing to you digitally. So there will be procedural elements that will get factored in even in the delivery aspect. But answering your larger question, so you identify areas where tech will bring in its advantages in terms of cost efficiencies, but recognize aspects which will remain confined to or where the role of the person is going to be important. So what we are, when we are engaging with our students, what we are emphasizing is that tech is fantastic and it is here, and you have to figure out how it will be how it will give you an advantage or a strategic advantage, right? But while you are doing, you also understand that there are aspects where it will not go beyond and where it will actually become disadvantageous. So when you look at customer experience, you'll have to define where the tech is providing you with information or aspects that are welcomed by customers and well received, and there are others where they would want to make sure that they see a person or interact with a person. So balance will emerge, and there are a lot of changes that are happening. So the lobby sizes have changed, the check-in processes have changed. Even I think when you look at guest history information, a lot of that has changed. So technology is going to drive some of those elements. At least folks who are entering the industry or who are going to be a part of the industry, we want to keep emphasizing that you stay abreast with what is coming through, right? But with a mindset that you will still choose where you see value proposition, where you see efficiency, where you see eventual value to the customer. That's something that you embrace, but not all of it is going to be like that, right? So there is a emerging segment where curated meals are important, right? So today I could say we have a fish pond here, and I have received every winter I receive requests that can you set up a table for 10 or a table for 20 where people will come, fish, take out the fish from the pond in real time. Our chefs will share what kind of recipes are possible, look at the farm, pull the vegetables real time, and then curate and have that as a lunch or a meal, right? Versus a lot of frozen product, a lot of pre-prep product. The point I'm making is दोनों same time में exist करेंगे. The reality is that the real experience is going to come at a premium. So the places where you have fantastic capacity for human beings to provide that special care, uski premium hogi, but it needs to be special as well, right? And there will be a segment where they will say speed zaruri hai, right? Or for I was staying at a hostel in Mukteshwar where they did not the phone was the key card. So app ke through khula, I throughout my stay, I'm forgetting the name of the brand, I did not see anyone, right? And initially I said, this is nice, right? No reception, no guy to talk to, right? I'm okay with that. मेरे phone पे app है, मैंने room में गया, room was fine, everything. Moment I touched F&B, right? Because now I mentioned I want this, I want that. The product that came was not right, and then I'm saying I want to talk to somebody, right? I want to talk to somebody. अब वो talk to somebody उनके structure में है ही नहीं, because they've outsourced the F&B. Nobody knows who's doing what there. So while there was an advantage, it went thus far, far and further. And then, so my overall experience, how can I have a great experience, right? If one part of it is fine and then there is a collapse. That I said that, which is kind of what I was saying, that वो balance है. So you have to figure out कहाँ value आ रही है. अब उन्होंने नहीं रखी है उस value को. उन्होंने वो app से आप order करो, एक कॉफी ऑर्डर कर रहा हूँ, मैंने उसमें लिखा है मुझे चीनी नहीं चाहिए, तो पर वो चीनी वाली आ रही है. अब मैं उसके ऊपर लिख रहा हूँ मेरे को नहीं आ रहा, वो तो it is not able to respond to a customer's complaint. It is not, so whoever got that information did not follow it, and obviously नहीं तो चीनी नहीं होनी चाहिए थी. So when the service breakdown has taken place, they don't have a person to respond to, right? And which is where the customer is dissatisfied. So वो you have to see through which segment and who is coming and all of that. But दोनों का play होगा. But I think we will continue to take pride in the fact that as professionals we will remain valued and we will always have an impact, and we'll also be in the driver's seat in terms of decisions, right? Where do we use technology, where we don't. So, and that's in principle what we are also sharing with the student group that's going, that absolutely the AI and tech driven elements will come into play. In parts of US, cabs are going to be driverless. Will that happen in India? I don't know. There's some research which said that in a society where there's a level of discipline, a driverless cab, it's fine, right? यहाँ 10 छोड़ के देखो. So, and I was in Goa and I told the cab guy, they're unionized. They're unionized there, right? In fact, they're unionized and they're sorted to a point. There's a given segment that rents the car. There's a given segment जो आप अगर गोवा में ही हो तो ड्राइवर के साथ आपको गाड़ी मिलेगी, and there's a third अगर आपको गोवा के बाहर जाना है और वो आपस में नेटवर्क्ड हैं, right? And they share business, right? And I told them ये उसने मुझे हंस के जवाब दिया, हमने ऊबर तक तो आने नहीं दी. So the point was that different cultural contexts, right, will be different segments will behave differently, but all that said, put aside, yes, there will continue to be wherever there are financial or economic gains. Usually, that continues to get pushed into an industry because at the end of the day, businesses will look at where their margins are, and I think as professionals we should welcome that. So welcome that, but also identify that there is an aspect of customer satisfaction which has to be factored in parallel. So both have to go hand in hand.
In fact, I was reading an article how US is responding to artificial intelligence in the service industry. They are hyper personalizing the experience of the customer. Even before you come to the table, they know what exactly you like, and that's how they are serving them.
So they're using the tool, but in terms of
Toast, in fact, I mean, there's a, I guess, startup Toast is there.
In fact, even I think brands like Marriott here, right? So the information is available. Now you have to use that. So you know that Sandeep has this kind of coffee, or this is how he wants that. I will be willing to pay for that experience, provided you are able to give me that level of experience, which is something similar to what butler service used to be. But today, butler service is not where it used to be 10, 20, 15 years back. But essentially, it was all about personalization to a level where a person is saying, is there anything that you don't know that I need and that you won't offer me that way? But absolutely.
How has this industry has changed post-COVID? Since a lot of dip has come just after COVID, so and how Vedatya is adopting this change?
So COVID, of course, affected the globe. Everyone got affected. The only thing that I think got blown out of proportion was the impact on the hospitality restaurant space. And I think what was also underestimated was its capacity to bounce right back. And I think the fundamental reason for that is nothing but human behavior. Right? The year and a half that we were shut off, we got out with a vengeance. Right? We got out with a vengeance. And that vengeance has stayed on. So what that has done is that the demand has gone through the roof. Right? You look at any segment of hotel, resort, or heritage property, and you'll be surprised with how packed they are. And I think that was a behavioral shift where and I think research will continue to happen decades out, that we want to travel way more than we wanted to before COVID. So it's almost like, because the tap was shut off on us, and there is some psychological or behavioral shift in our head that we are venturing out more. And so what that did was that a lot of capacity addition took place. I remember that while we were getting through the 21, 22, 23 phase, parents and a lot of people would say that, इसमें तो industry में jobs ही नहीं होंगी. I did not believe in that for a second. My understanding at that point was also that the industry is people-centric. And I went back to the first, and the only reason I started working in the industry was a statement by a cousin of mine who was working in Taj. And he said in Hindi कि इस इंडस्ट्री में ना रहती दुनिया तक काम रहेगा. और मैं अब हंसता हूँ 30 साल के ऊपर हो गए कि ये ट्रू है कि रहती दुनिया तक इस इंडस्ट्री में काम रहेगा. But responding to the question, so COVID did 2-3 things. One, scale up happened. Lot of capacity addition has happened, I think. The ARRs are through the roof. In fact, last 2 years, you can pick up any report. And which is why I keep saying, itni irony kisi sector mein nahi milegi aapko. Where the industry is doing, they've had their best ever financial years. 2 साल पहले, उसके बाद, and I think ये साल भी वही होगा. So you're beating financial numbers flat year on year. So revenue growth, profit growth, and expansion in terms of new. ये तीनों चीजें like there is no tomorrow. बस आप 21-22 छोड़ दो, 23 onwards ये जर्नी शुरू हो गई, 23, 24, 25 और ये कंटिन्यू हो रही है. Right? Guided by what I told you, that went up demand, which doesn't seem like there is any satiety here. Right? So you just want to travel, and it's not the international market has driven that. International travel stagnant hai.
It's domestic market that has driven the market.
Which is driving that. a hotel which I would have been surprised with an ARR of 5,000, जब मैं चेक करता हूँ वो 12-14,000. There seems to be a massive build up in terms of performance. Parallelly, strikingly and very unfortunate is the commentary of young people who we need to run these businesses. So दो takeaways जो दो clearly starkly visible हैं COVID के बाद is hospitality business haven't seen better days. They haven't seen better growth, better financial results, and they haven't also seen more dramatic loss in people who are going to be interested to run the business. So I think to wrap your head around that is quite tough. Right? In an industry जहाँ ये तीनों aspects lined up हों, growth, fantastic financial performance, right, which is equal to great opportunities, right? Why would we see a declining number like that? Right? And which is where I think the entire ecosystem has to answer for that and send a message that look, when an industry is doing so well, that means you should be able to do better for your own people. And when you do that, you will attract the next wave. And they'll be very happy to choose you. And why are you expanding if you are not going to be able to get talent pipeline going for yourself? So I think it's doable. Had the industry been struggling, ये आर्ग्यूमेंट थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है ना, दैट यू नो हम ग्रो नहीं कर रहे, फाइनेंशियल प्रेशर है, देखो ARR स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं और आप कह रहे हो तनख्वाहें बढ़ाओ. मैं आपको ये कह रहा हूँ कि यू हैवंट सीन बेटर ईयर्स, राइट? ब्रांड आफ्टर ब्रांड आप देख सकते हो उनके फाइनेंशियल. जब आप इतना अच्छा कर रहे हो तो यही तो टाइम है. आई डोंट नो 5 years out when it will flatten out, right? Right now is the time when you can do more. Use this time to put out a better package in front of young people so that the narrative starts shifting, so that they start thinking that, oh, why should I not consider it? You know, it's paying 20-30% more than all the rest of the options. Let me go and jump at that. I am going to get promoted every 2 years. Let me jump at that. तो narrative change करने वाली बात है. So COVID के ये दो, एक आपने बताया मुझे statistics के थ्रू, दूसरा आप कोई भी रिपोर्ट ले लीजिए, आपको वो, you know, this is true. Brand after brand. You take a IHCL results, ITC के देख, किसी के भी, and I'm sure same for global brands.
So you spent years in this field, have taken up a lot of diverse job, in fact. So what are 3 non-hotel careers do you see in hotel industry?
So I see the box as hotel or almost connected career pathways. So जिसमें, you know, you're working with hotels, resorts, restaurant chains, event management companies हो गए, catering हो गई, airlines हो गए. This is kind of the one, you know, grouping that I see. So they are not only hotels, but kind of close in terms of the job roles and profiles. Then there is another set, which is quite different. So which is revenue management. So their job roles in revenue management with hospitals and so on and so. So your chains like PVR, bank ke customer service, consulting firms. So and I know a few people, in fact, in quite senior roles now. And the first time I heard that, you know, IT firms, that they have demand for hospitality professionals because they're making products for the industry. So if you're making a product, you need to understand what are the processes, how does that. So that's an area. So consulting firms are an opportunity. So larger piece, the entire service sector, right? In India, the cold chain and the supply chain, right? We have some programs, but I think largely if you were to talk to 20 professionals working in supply chain and cold chain, you will possibly see that almost 15 of them, 20 में से 15-16 hospitality की direction से आए हुए लोग, because they paid more. The entire organized retail, they took people from the hospitality sector, right? Because jahan bhi, and I think in our earlier casual conversation I mentioned, the skill set is functional in so many different ways that even if you, and I see that as a huge positive and actually an opportunity. So somebody like me who started off with hotels realized in US that there was better prospects and more money in retail, went into retail, then felt came back in India, found opportunity in consulting, did that, and then went into education. So that means that you're not getting boxed. Of course, I added more through qualifications, but essentially the skill set that you get from the program, we label it as hotel management, hospitality management, but uske spin-offs in terms of what you're able to do are massive. I have folks from my batch, they're working with banks, not just the service side, like core banking, real estate, right? So it's basically the entire service sector, right? And you can reinvent yourself through maybe a qualification, through a course thereafter, whenever you want, which answers that big question mark which a lot of parents and a lot of people say, the quality of life. You can decide how long you want to stay in the operations. I did that for 14 years, right? Sometimes I still feel, not now. I think I'm too old to go back and hit the shop floor. But for the longest time, I kept feeling that if I had stayed back in US, I would have actually stayed in the industry. My operations mein rehta, because I was loving it there. Right? I was excited about what I was doing. Your family situation puts a pressure on you, but that still gives you that window of 10, 15 years of doing what you want, and with the recognition that you are not boxed. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको सारी जिंदगी आप चाहो. I have batchmates who are still in the industry. The batchmate of mine, he runs the F&B for Marriott at a corporate level, at a regional level. So he loves doing that. He's doing that. There's another guy who runs an event management company, and there are others who are doing very different things, right? So, and we started the same way. We found our own paths. So that flexibility is huge. It is not like, I did one thing and now that's either I do that or I don't do anything. It's not like that at all. So, a fantastic question, that there is a range of possibilities. You can choose which possibility aligns with your life goals when, right? Yeah, for your 10, 12, 14 years, 15 years, it'll be fantastic. Work in the industry, grow in that, go get into a senior role. Then you want to do something else, there will be something else to do. So you can kind of carve out directions because there are no barriers really. So wo opportunities ka jo scope hai, it's there. And I was speaking to a friend of mine, he was 2 years junior to me. He is heading consulting at Hotel I-8. So as a managing partner, right? So he's doing very different kind of work. So आप उससे बात कर रहे होते तो वो बोलता उसने भी होटल्स में काम किया, फिर उसने किसी और डिफरेंट एरिया में. So there is a range of possibilities, actually limitless है.
सर अभी के डेट में अगर कोई होटल मैनेजमेंट करके निकलता है तो किस तरह की सैलरी एक्सपेक्टेशन वो रख सकता है आफ्टर completion of their graduation?
So in terms of our graduates, I think typically I get nervous if somebody offers anything less than 25,000. Right, so that's kind of the level that, at least in our ecosystem, we see that as a line that they should get at least that much start. As a management training, there are brands that will offer 30, 35. So I've started seeing 30, 35 being offered through the last 2 years, and I'll be happy if I start seeing 40, 45s. Right, so that's what we are seeing right now. I do keep hearing from the larger ecosystem that somebody is offering 14,000, 15,000, 16,000. Right? Today, with the kind of expenses that we have, I don't think that's a sustainable number. Right? If somebody is saying that at an associate level also, I would think anything less than about 25 is not a workable number. Maybe if the quality of the graduate or where you're looking at is not something that you are able to work with, even then a brand should not offer anything less than 20. Last 2 years I am seeing an uptick. Right? उससे पहले मैं सुनता था कि 15, 16, 17, 18 ऑफर कर रहे हैं. They may offer something like accommodation offer कर दिया साथ में. They kind of factor in that you'll have 2 of your meals there. So they'll kind of make it work from that sense. But our graduates, I think about 25 is that lower end of the spectrum. I'm hearing 30, 35. And the moment I start hearing 40, I'll start smiling. That somebody is hurt. Because I think that's where the messaging will really head in the right direction for our young people.
So, अक्सर ये कहा जाता है कि लैंग्वेज एंड पर्सनैलिटी ये दो एक कॉर्नरस्टोन है इस फील्ड के. ये दोनों अलग अलग रिक्वायर्ड हैं या दोनों का मिक्स क्या ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है?
So I think this connects back with the earlier conversation we had. दोनों required हैं. So you know, in terms of when you look at certain job roles, it's very important, or at least the industry still feels that you know how a person looks, right, in terms of the personality. Case in point is, you know, when you look at how air hostesses how they get selected, airlines select. So in unke benchmarks, you know, height should be so and so, right, and a person should look in a given way. So the industry hotel industry also has those, but it really depends. So if you're wanting to become a chef, right, I think your work with food, right, your knowledge about that would possibly become more important than how fluently you're speaking English. आप कमाल का खाना बना रहे हो, your skill set is there, and your trade test you're shining, right? The other guy is average but speaks very well, right? Who do you think I would hire? I'm going to go with the guy whose food is fantastic, right? So the spin is going to be in that direction. I'm in a sales role, right? I would want to make sure that the person really is able to speak or has a language strength which is really, you know, at the next level. So I think it is going to differ in terms of which job roles you're looking at individuals, but essentially both are important as a skill set. The only caveat that I have is that an industry also, and a lot of people I speak to, they recognize and will, like, I think, put a stamp on what I'm saying, is that we've become alert to a candidate who looks great, talks great, but is unlikely to stay with us. So you know, because you put time and effort down in terms of training people, and where you can smell that, right, and that might be through an attitude. जो मैंने work ethic पे बात करी. So anybody where we see that ना वो work नहीं करता फिर हमारे लिए. You could be the best looking guy, and you know you could have fantastic communication skills, but you are worthless for me because I don't think you are going to stay with us, because you don't want to do this. You are yourself wondering why you are here. But you are interested, right, and you have all of those elements. Then you are my star. Right? Basically, of course, we'll welcome somebody from that. So they are important, but with the caveats that I mentioned.
Students from tier 2 and tier 3 find it really difficult to get into this industry. So particularly for them, how welcoming is this industry?
So the industry has changed over the last 10-15 years. It is not just so a candidate from a tier 2 or 3 city, the only struggle point will be you know, my general sense of grooming and communication skills, right? Communication skills, maybe we can go narrow. Language, English, right? We have a brand, Lemon Tree, that is today, as a part of their human resource policy, they've been supporting, and they build this as a strategic advantage through maybe the last 10-15 years, is where they're welcoming people with disability, learning challenges, right? They're people who can't even speak, right? And they are welcomed, and customers have also responded to that, right? So the industry will welcome you, rest assured. The only thing that you have to stop thinking is the fact that you don't speak English well doesn't make you, it doesn't touch your work ethic, it doesn't make you less hardworking, it doesn't touch your intelligence, right? It doesn't touch any of those valuable elements, right? It's just a language. Very easily so, you know, I know we are talking at a time where, you know, the Marathi Hindi bit is going on in Mumbai, in Mumbai, in Maharashtra. The point is that, and whenever I've, you know, we've looked at applicants and potentially even students who have enrolled with us. So the first thing I tell you, first problem is what's there in your head. You are connecting the fact that तुम अंग्रेजी तेजी से नहीं बोल पा रहे हो या बहुत फ्लुएंटली नहीं बोल पा रहे हो, उसको inferiority वाला लिंक दे रहे हो. सबसे पहले तो वो रिमूव कर दो. If the English hadn't come here, English wouldn't have been here. If the English hadn't maybe occupied 70% of the world, वो लैंग्वेज ग्लोबल नहीं होती. The only reason I'm telling you कि आप इंग्लिश सीखिए yeah, try and become better at it, is because it's a language of the world. Because tomorrow if you want to work in the Middle East, tomorrow if you want to work in somewhere else, तुम्हारे काम आएगी, right? And of course, as far as the hotels in India, it is a bigger issue than it really is. One is that point, and the second bit is that you can work on it. That in a college you have 3 years, right? I have seen students come where the communication skills are not what somebody in an interview in an industry will be very happy with. You've got 3 years to work on that. By the time if you're working on it, at the end of the day, it's a language, right? And if you work on it, you will get to a point where you will be fairly okay. Nobody is telling you to stop working after 3 years, right? 4 years, 5 years, you're working on it, you will become good, right? That's how a language works. So it isn't an issue, it's more of an issue in the mind of the applicants, or where they come from. The same is also true about the fact that because they have not been exposed to a socio-cultural context that is typical of a large city. How long do you think it is going to be before you are going to be, the amalgamation has taken place, or it's a melting pot, right? I went from Delhi. My very close friend, he was from Kanpur. There was a difference. How long was that difference? I don't think so. So I think वो ये mindset में और पेरेंट्स के भी है. सेम चीज लड़कियों के लिए सोचते हैं. ये लड़कियों, मैं तो आंसर करते करते थक गया कि मुंजाल सर ये हमारे बेटी के लिए सेफ होगी. Every damn corner is under CCTV. Brands will protect their reputation. The zero tolerance है. And I tell them, मेरे साथ चलो, मैं दिखा देता हूँ कौन से डिपार्टमेंटल हेड्स आज की डेट में ladies are not there. Start from security to F&B to GM. There are hotels where all of these guys are doing, and they bring attributes which are fantastic, and eye for detail, conscientiousness, which is better than. And if you still want to hold back your daughters, why would you do that? There is a magical demand for the other gender. In fact, if demand for gentlemen was X, this is X cube for all the right reasons. So I think mindset shift hai. I sometimes get surprised when in 2024-25 also I get those questions from parents. We answer them, but the reality is it's in their mind. It's in the mind. Even if you have gone through education, and I'm going as far as that, even if somebody has gone through their education in Hindi medium, right? For a nation where we have started, or at least I want to take pride, how does the industry respond to the fact that I speak well in Hindi, right? And there's a whole nationwide still noise about, from a nationalist point of view, that you want to say that, oh, you don't speak English, therefore there will. I don't think so. So I think वो shift already है, in place है. कुछ job roles में तो कोई issue नहीं है. And the only reason I push for, or I would recommend still, you still make that language a strength, is because the options and doors it opens. और किसी reason से, कोई और reason नहीं है. Right? It doesn't make you a less intelligent or a less hardworking guy or a more suitable candidate. Right? It makes your doors and windows that you can open for yourself so many more. Why won't you do that? And if you start working out, then you can get to a point where you are fairly functional.
Okay. So what's your recommendation? Should a person go for post-graduation after completing graduation in terms of hotel management?
In my opinion, for any professional to pursue a higher qualification, the rationale shouldn't be to have a postgrad sit on your profile or your CV. A lot of times individuals do that, and I think some of that happens because as a society, or even within India, in the context of industries, we start pushing that argument that you want a good job after a BBA, do an MBA, even if you have just worked for a couple of years. The argument should be what skill set or knowledge set is missing, which gets you ready for the next phase of your career. And the moment you feel that you've reached a point where you need something more that will help you grow in your career, is where the logical rationale to do a program comes. And it is possible that that might not be a 2-year MBA. That could be a 1-year master's. That could be a bunch of short-term courses. So there are lots of options. But I think my recommendation to our students, and I think even alumni when they reach out to me and ask that question, is that the reason has to be that what will this value add do for you? By all means, do it. In fact, you need to be on that path of learning and adding value throughout our life. That's equally relevant for me from where I am sitting to a young man who's just entering the industry. But do it with that thought process versus to pick up, and typically a lot of times you just end up doing an MBA and even choose a specialization or a dual specialization and then never do anything that is linked with it. That doesn't add up. So if you've spent some time working in the industry, I think you would have made that decision for a qualification in a more informed way. So कुछ साल काम करने के बाद आप जब वो decision लोगे, तो I think it makes sense. Do not hurry into it. So don't do it. Essentially, what I'm saying, don't do it for the sake of doing. Don't do it if somebody says कि सबके CV में post-grad qualification. In fact, another thing that is fairly common is that you pick up a brand which has got a strong reputation, and I am X or I am Y, और फिर उसका कोई एक शॉर्ट टर्म या कोई प्रोग्राम करके आप अपने CV में लिखोगे आई हैव डन पोस्ट ग्रेड फ्रॉम anyone who is working with you, interviewing you or hiring you or promoting you, they'll figure out, right? At the end of the day, if you're ready for that next job or that next jump, you will have to demonstrate your capacity to do that. उस पे focus करके करोगे तो you will do the right thing at the right time. So I pursued my master's in US when I realized that if I have to grow, what the messaging is that I need a postgrad qualification. They paid for it, so it was great. But after doing that, I realized that I did not learn that much because I'd been working for maybe 10 odd years already. So the value addition skill set wise was not that great because I'd already had a journey. So maybe it would have been great if I had done it earlier. Then maybe I would have said that I learned this, I learned that. So I think the timing is important, but it has to be connected with the journey. If you're in an operational role and if you want to continue to drive that, I think you can go a significant distance without being worried about the postgrad qualification. But I think the moment you come close to hitting a senior leadership role, I think it is wise to line up a postgrad qualification which gives you all the tools that you are likely to need for that job role, so that when they're looking at candidates and they want to figure out whether you are the right guy, you're able to on the profile as well as in terms of your aptitude and capacity, you're able to get ready for that. So I think that is an approach I feel that I would recommend to young people. So there's no in fact, if it was a culinary pathway, why would a chef look at doing a postgrad qualification which has no direct connect with the journey he or she is having? Maybe a specialized course is something that will be more useful to you or more valuable. So as long as you have a logical rationale about timing and what you're doing, absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for giving us.
It's a pleasure. It was nice speaking to you, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. I tend to be candid, and I think that was the purpose for me to be able to speak my mind, and hopefully it is. It's
absolutely, sir. It gave some sense of relief for us that the industry in this college is in right hands, in the right shape. Thank you so much, sir.
The last thing that I would say is, like I said when I started off, it offers fantastic pathways, and I think I would encourage youngsters to at least give it a good look and find out more and see if it's the right direction or a fit for you. But in the era that we are heading, service industry is going to be a fantastic option with career paths that are fairly insulated. So I'll encourage young people to consider hospitality and related career paths. Thank you again for your time.
अगर आपकी कोई क्वेरी है तो प्लीज कमेंट सेक्शन में आप उसको ड्रॉप कर सकते हैं, जिससे हम वो क्वेरी सर को मेल कर सकें और probably sir would be obliged enough to answer those questions. Thank you so much once again.
Welcome.